Hi, it's Chris here and welcome to another video. This is a vinyl finds video. So I thought I'd share some of the stuff that I've picked up over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, culminating in a visit to Bristol Record Fair at the weekend where I picked up 5 albums. So on my last vinyl finds video, I shared this album. So this is British band Wishbone Ash. It's their 5th studio album, but the first one to feature a guy called Laurie Wisefield. And it was a real change in direction. So previously they'd been quite folky, quite proggy, in their first 4 albums anyway, and the addition of Laurie Wisefield plus the producer Bill, that unpronounceable name, Schmizik, who produced Hotel California, there was definitely a changing sound. Now, I was aware of a couple of the songs on here because a long time ago I bought an album by Wishbone Ash called Live Dates 2, which has got lots of the Laurie Wisefield era songs from this band. So FUBB and Persephone were both on that live album. Persephone actually is on Classic Ash, so I've known that for a very long time. But when I showed that, there was a couple of comments attached to the video with recommendations of other Wishbone Ash albums that I should look out for if I like that era of the band. And so I went into a local record shop and they had a couple of albums by them for £4 each. And all the albums I'm showing today were £5 or less. And I think £5 is kind of like my maximum, really. I very rarely go beyond £5 for an album. I just don't think they're worth it. So I found this one. This is Wishbone Ash New England. So this is from, 75, 76, Hypnosis cover. Reasonably good album, actually. I really enjoy this. Again, I was aware of a couple of the songs. I think Lorelei, Runaway, I think those two are on Live Dates 2. There's a track on here called You Rescue Me, which possibly is on Live Dates 2 as well, actually, which is very much like Persephone in its structure, kind of a slow build. The opener, Mother of Pearl, is a good track, and the instrumental Outward Bound is also pretty good. So I was really pleased to pick that up, and I've really been enjoying that, actually. I also, at the same time, picked up this one. Now, this is not as good. This is from 78. This is No Smoke Without Fire. Should have come with a free 7-inch single. It didn't. It just comes with a picture and lyrics. So not bad. The opener, You See Red, is a pretty good track. And there's one track that's again on that Live Dates 2 album, which is Way of the World, which is probably the best song on it. So it's okay. I've been enjoying listening to that alongside New England. Now, another record shop I went into a little while ago, I also found another Wishbone Ash album, this time from 1980. This is Just Testing. Now, this, I think, is the last album to feature the bassist Martin Turner, and I think this is probably the last album I'll probably pick up by them, actually. I think it's okay. And I've been reasonably enjoying it. It's not brilliant, it's certainly not essential. Living Proof, that opens the album, is a really good track. It's quite classic Ash, actually. That's a song that I think features on Live Dates 2 as well, actually. Helpless, Insomnia, Lifeline, all good tracks. So not bad. Nice glossy sleeve as well. It's got a picture inner as well as a merch sheet as well. And I always like it when I pick up an album with a merch sheet. I've never seen any of these kind of cuts or anyone ever sent away for these things. But anyway, so I was glad to pick that up. Again, is it essential? Not really. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I did. And for £4, I think it was, who can complain? Now, another album I picked up at the same shop as that, actually. This was just £5, and it's the first album from Camel. Now, this is not an original, it's an 80s repress, but beggars can't be choosers, and it was £5. So this is, this is a reasonably good album, actually. Now, I've got all the Camel albums from this one now right up to about 1984, which is Stationary Traveller, and I enjoy most of them, if I'm honest. I think they're a really good band, and this is definitely an album by a band who are trying to find their sound. Nonetheless, it's a good album. I think their keyboard player Peter Bardens, who plays organ, mellotron rather than mellotron, piano, a good keyboard player, really good keyboard player. As is Andy Latimer's a really good guitar player. The only thing that I think always holds back Camel a little bit is the vocals. But Andy Latimer, although his vocals may be a little bit weak, his guitar playing is really good. Separation, for example, shows his talents as a guitarist. So I'm really pleased to pick that up. I've really been enjoying that. No, it's not as good as Moon Madness or Snow Goose or Mirage, but it's a really good listen, and I really like this band, actually. So, it's a bit folky, bit jazzy in places. It's definitely a bit proggy in places, but a really enjoyable listen. So that's the first album from Camel. Same shop as that, I picked up an album I've never seen before, but I've heard of the two guys who recorded it. And these two have worked together quite a lot. So it's blues players, Buddy Guy and Junior Wells. Now I know of Hoodoo Man Blues, which is a really classic album, blues album. But I've not seen this one before. So this is Drinking TNT and Smoking Dynamite. It was recorded at the Montreux Jazz Festival in '74, although this came out in '84 on Red Lightning Records, which is not a label I've ever heard of, actually. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a really, really competent run through some of their kind of classic songs. Also some Sonny Boy Williamson songs on there as well. So, a nice mix of kind of stuff that you've probably heard before, but as I said, a really competent run through, some good songs. I also found I think this was £4 or £5 in the same shop, an album. I think this might actually be his first fully fledged solo album, which is David Byrne, from the guy from Talking Heads. This is an album called Ray Momo. I don't know if I've even pronounced that right. This is an album that really shows his kind of love for Latin, salsa, Brazilian kind of music. It's a sort of album, it's really hot in the UK at the moment. It's the sort of album you can have on the background while you're having a gin and tonic in a garden. It's got a really nice groove. Would I sit down and listen to it? No, probably not. It's good background music. It's good happy music. I don't think it would work in the middle of winter, but it's chock-a-block full of kind of, the usual kind of oddball lyrics and vocal delivery that David Byrne is probably famous for. And it's also full of Brazilian musicians as well, which gives it quite an authentic kind of air. So, again, is it essential? No. Is it enjoyable? Yeah, it is. And for £4 or £5, it's good. Now, at the same shop, and I think this might have been mispriced, actually, but I was happy to pick it up for this. And this is the second album by US kind of new wave band, Television. This is Adventure. Now, Television's debut album, Marquee Moon, is probably seen as a classic, a guitar classic as well. It's one of the greatest debuts, I think, of the 1970s. A really hard act to follow, and they have really struggled following it with this. It's all right. And, Marquee Moon, if I'm honest, well, I remember hearing that, back in the sort of 78 kind of time, and it took me ages to get into because it didn't sound like the other albums from that era. And this is nowhere near as good as that. Yeah, there's intricate moments, there's kind of like reflective moments, it's some lyrically smart, like Marquee Moon, but it's not as immediate, it's not as kind of in your face and as aggressive, it's not as guitar orientated, which is a shame because Richard Lloyd and Tom Verlaine are fantastic guitar players when they play together. Their guitars really sort of mix beautifully. There's one song called The Fire, which is quite melancholic. As I said, it's quite reflective. That's really good, and it has a fantastic guitar solo in that. There's a couple of kind of poppy-ish moments in it. Ain't That Nothing is a little bit kind of Stonesy in some way. Glory is okay, Foxhole's okay. It might take me a bit of time to get into, and hey, I'm retired, I've got a lot of time to get into records, but I think I might ultimately struggle with this, so I'll give it time. But is it as good as Marquee Moon? Not a chance, but interesting nonetheless. So Television were part of the kind of CBGB's era of US punk. So Talking Heads with David Byrne and the Ramones and Heartbreakers and of course Blondie. And this is the first album. So this was the first of 5 albums that I bought at Bristol Record Fair. Now there is a stall there that sells albums for £5 each or 5 for £20. So usually when I get to about 3, I go hunting for 2 more to kind of get 5 at £4 each. So this was £4. It's not an original on private stock. It's on Charisma, but it's on Green Charisma, and therefore I think that makes it a reasonably early repress, maybe even a 77 repress of it actually. Now, I remember back in 77, because Blondie actually, interestingly enough, played in the town near where I lived actually as a kid. So Blondie played, I can't remember the name of the club, it might have been Chelsea Village actually in Bournemouth. And it was one of the first UK gigs ever. And a few of people I knew at school went, and I was really disappointed I hadn't, bearing in mind how big this person came. But I remember walking around Bournemouth and seeing posters for this gig, and also adverts for a 12-inch single, which I did buy, which had Ex-Offender, Ripper to Shreds, and I think In the Flesh, I think, on it. And those 3 songs feature on this album. Now, this again is an album by a band who are trying to find their sound, I think. You know, they certainly, the albums that follow this are certainly considerably better. So the 3 tracks that are on that 12-inch single, and I think they may actually be on a 7-inch as well, Ex-Offender, In the Flesh, Ripper to Shreds, I think are the best songs on this album actually. But, you know, a good album. You know, Blondie were a tremendous pop band, and this isn't really punky at all. This is much more poppy, but hasn't quite got that kind of quality of melody that the later albums have. But a really nice pickup. Good addition to the collection. I'm not a huge fan of the next person, and if I'm really honest, I was looking for the 5th album to make up, you know, 5 for £20. But there's 1 or 2 tracks on here I do really like, and it's Desire by Bob Dylan. I don't have much Bob Dylan stuff actually. I've got 1 or 2 of his early things. Hurricane on here, Isis, Mozambique, you know, Romance in Durango. They're good songs, and I really enjoy listening to this actually. I don't know how many times I will listen to it, but I think potentially this could be one of his, for me anyway, one of his better albums. You know, his storytelling on this is as good as ever. His voice is as bad as ever. But anyway, so nice addition to the collection. Next up was an album. This was the kind of 4th album when I was looking for ones to make up 5 actually. Now, I blow hot and cold with this band. So they are famous for a particular sound, I think, and a particular album around about the 83 time, and that was Eliminator. So this is ZZ Top, and this is an album from almost 10 years before that album. So this is 74 or 75, I think this. Fandango. I'm not sure where it sits in their discography. It might be their 3rd or 4th album. I personally think this is one of their best albums. It's half live, side 1 is live, side 2 is studio. This is not an original, this is an 80s repress of the album, but a really, really clean copy of it. So it plays beautifully. And it has, I think, on side 2, some of their greatest moments. If they'd done a side, 2 sides rather, of the same quality as side 2 and done a studio album, I think this would be seen as possibly their best album. So side 2 has got Blue Jean Blues, which, if you've not heard it, is a beautiful, beautiful slow blues track. The guitar playing, the tone, everything from Billy Gibbons is sensational. So if you like the blues, you're apt, and you haven't heard that song, which I'm sure you have, but it's just gorgeous. And it also has one of their most famous songs, actually, finishing the album, which is Tush. Side 1 has got some kind of rock and roll stuff on it and so on, and it's pretty good. And they would have been a really good band around about this time to see. So this is Texas blues band ZZ Top and their 3rd album, Fandango. Yeah, enjoyable stuff. I was really surprised to see this in a £5 bin, the next one actually, as I was the next 2. Because it's not because this is necessarily collectible, but whenever I see it, this is a £20 album usually. I'm not really sure why. I enjoy it a lot actually, and this is a band I really liked when I was a kid actually, and it's Motorhead. This is, I think, their 3rd album, possibly the one. This is one before Ace of Spades, is it? The one after Overkill. This is Bomber from 1979. It's on Bronze Records. It has a couple of their absolute classic songs on it, and they're both for me on side 2. Stone Dead Forever, which has got a gorgeous guitar solo from Fast Eddie Clarke, absolutely brilliant. And of course it's got Bomber, which closes the album, which is, you know, I think it's just a brilliant song to close with. So I was really pleased to pick that up. So this was just £4. It's not a UK original, it's a German copy of it, but again, really, really clean and a good condition. I'm really pleased to pick that up. A couple of CDs before I show the last album actually, because they're just in front of me and I haven't shown these. So I always show something Deep Purple related, so I better keep up that kind of tradition. So a couple of Tommy Bolin CDs that I picked up for cheap on eBay actually. This is a compilation from the Tommy Bolin Archive series. It's called Snapshot. It's got a variety of kind of live tracks and demos and so on. Really interesting stuff if you love Tommy Bolin, which I do. Here was a man who could play any genre of music pretty much. He could play blues, he played rock, he played funk, he played jazz. Absolutely sensational, brilliant acoustically. I love his voice, actually. It's really gentle, understated. It's really good. So that's a nice addition to my Tommy Bolin collection, as is this. Also from the Tommy Bolin archives. This is the Energy radio broadcast. So he was in a band in Sioux City in Iowa called Energy before he became a solo artist and played with Deep Purple and James Gang. And I think this actually is probably before he played with Billy Cobham as well, actually. It's got, this is live, and it's got a couple of songs repeated on the 2 CDs, but it's got an early version of Dreamer on it, which became one of his best solo tracks, and a very early version of Lady Luck, which features on Come Taste the Band, the only album he did with Deep Purple. So the sound isn't great. It's all right. It's kind of off the radio sort of thing, but a really good document of early Tommy Bolin. So if you're a fan of his kind of music, this is a really nice CD. And the last one, Tommy Bolin played in Mark IV Deep Purple alongside David Coverdale, Ian Pace, John Lord and Glenn Hughes. Now, if you've watched my videos recently, you know I've had a bit of a Glenn Hughes kind of collection recently added to my collection of his stuff. This is his last solo album from 2016, so he's not done something for 7 years. He was in his mid-60s when he recorded this. His voice, I don't think has ever sounded better. I think actually this is possibly his best solo album. It's certainly his strongest set of songs. It opens with a track called Heavy, which is proper heavy. And there's also, is it Let It Shine? Might be Let It Shine or Flow, which is really doomy. And there's some Deep Purple kind of moments on it as well. But the songs are much stronger and his voice is absolutely brilliant. So for me, his best solo album. So good stuff. Last album was from Bristol Record Fair. This made up the 5 for £20. And although I was really surprised to see Bomber in those £5 bins, I was really surprised to see this actually. I don't see it very often. I've been meaning to try and pick it up for a long time. It's by a band I really know nothing about actually. They're UK kind of blues, psychedelic, hard rock band, almost proto-metal actually. And I think they were very young when they recorded this. This is Stray. So this is an album from, I think, 1970, possibly. I think it's around about 69 or 70, die-cut sleeve. Someone's done quite a nice little repair job on that, actually, so not too bad. If you like really psychedelic, proto-metal, early kind of hard rock, especially guitar that's played with a wah-wah pedal, you are really going to love this album. It's really good, actually. The opening track, All in Your Mind, is the best track, I think, on the album. It is absolutely brilliant. This is a band that's what's the guy's name? Oh my God, I've had a Harris, or whatever his name is, first name, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, the bassist, the founder of Iron Maiden. This is a band he really rates, and in fact, Iron Maiden cover All in Your Mind. I think it's a B-side of a single that came out in the 90s sometime. But, In Reverse, some say, All in Your Mind, some really good songs on here. And as I said, if you like kind of very early 70s, late 60s, psychedelic, hard rock, wah-wah guitar, that kind of thing, this is going to be an album for you. Really good stuff. So there's my latest pickups. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'll be back sometime soon, I'm sure, with another video. Cheers, bye.